Hello, everyone.
Good morning, everybody.
Just waiting for Colin to come and join us. Where is Colin? It's okay. No worries. Welcome, everyone, to the Northwest Tug. Today, if you got sent the wrong link, I apologize. But hopefully you've obviously all made it to the right place now. So Elle, over to you.
Cool. Nice to see everybody. So this is our fourth virtual tug. We've been running the Northwest Tug since the end of 2017, I think. So, and really enjoying putting them on. So let me click the next slide. So let's just introduce you to us, the leaders of the tug, for those of you who haven't been before. I'm Ella Worsdale. I'm a head of information for Pennine Care, which is an NHS trust. I've been using Tableau since 2015, so a good 5 or 6 years now. Still obsessed with Tableau and absolutely love running the tug. I'm also a Tableau user group ambassador and also co-run the healthcare user group in England too. Lorna, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Lorna Brown. I'm a Tableau and Alteryx consultant at the Information Lab. I'm also a Tableau Zen Master and Tableau Public Ambassador. I help run this tug as well, but also a community initiative called Workout Wednesday, which helps you enhance your Tableau skills in features and table calculations, LODs, lots of different options to learn new things with Workout Wednesday. Colin?
Thanks. Hi, I'm Connie Voitwicz. I'm an independent data viz consultant in the historic city of Chester, and I'm business and research data. Been doing that for about 5 years, and when I'm not doing that, I'm daddy daycare for my 3-year-old. So
cool, thank you. Right. So on the agenda this morning, we have got 5 speakers lined up, plus our amazing Kahoot quiz that we like to put on. So we've got Andrew up first talking about streamlining permissions in Tableau. Then at 10:30, we've got Steve Adams, the visual DJ, who's going to template like an artist to show you how to speed up dashboard building and user insights using templates as a starting point. We've then got our very own Lorna, who's going to be talking about sets and all the combinations of set actions. After our quiz, we've got Sarah Bartlett, a Tableau Zen Master and Tableau Social Ambassador. So chuffed to have her here. She's going to be talking about certifiably Tableau and how to get certified in Tableau Desktop. In this talk, Sarah's going to share an overview of how all the different Tableau desktop certifications work, what to expect for each exam, and some tips and tricks to get you on your way. And then to close us off, we've got Dr. Kevin Lee Elder, who's live from the US, so he's got up very, very early, so we're very appreciative of that. He's going to talk to us about data viz style guides from 1914 to present day, so looking forward to that. Aiming to finish around 11:45, but there will be time for a few minutes to go back to our tables and do a bit of networking if you want to chat to some of the other people on the tug. So that is the agenda for the day. Just to give a bit of an update. So in terms of, as well as user groups, there's lots of other initiatives that we always try and give a shout out to through the tug. So we've got Workout Wednesday that Lorna just mentioned that she helps to lead, which is a great way to kind of test out your technical Tableau skills. There's also something called #Makeover Monday. Every Sunday, some guys in the community release a data set. You then get the opportunity to make it over, and then you can get some feedback during the week. So it's a great way of kind of really honing your data visualization skills. There's other things like Sports Biz Sunday and loads of other initiatives in the community, so check them out. It's always good to kind of get on Tableau or LinkedIn and follow some of these if you want to kind of improve your skills. There's also mentoring opportunities, being a Tableau mentor as well as being a Tableau mentee. So if you're interested in getting some support or supporting people with your skills, then that is a website to go and check out. And there's a new initiative, I think, that still goes on around getting feedback. There's loads of different things going on in the community, so make sure you get on Twitter or LinkedIn, and there's loads of stuff to follow. A cheeky plug for Lorna. She's written a book about Tableau with all her amazing skills. So that's ready for pre-order on Amazon. Just try and remember the name because it might come up later and it might be useful. And I think that is everything. So we're going to kick off with our first. So let me invite Andrew to the stage. Andrew, if you just pop your camera on, you should appear. And here he is. Thank you. Andrew is actually a Tableau TUG first. He is trying to move house at the same time as giving a presentation for the Tableau user group. So lots of respect for Andrew. Hopefully he will make the next 10 minutes without some movers moving around in the background or turning off his Wi-Fi. So Andrew, if you want to share your screen, and
thanks,
then
Ella. Let me share my. I'm working out how to share this screen. Ella is correct. When I agreed to do this chat, I had no idea that I'd be moving today. But my house is getting ripped apart, and hopefully this will go smoothly enough, but I can't guarantee, unfortunately.
There we go. Great. I'll leave you to it. I think we've lost your sound, Andrew.
Yeah? What's it say? You hear me now?
There you go.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Great. So any technical hiccup switched off at any point? Fingers crossed. It remains good. Okay. So who am I? I've been around the Tableau scene for a very, very, very long time. I think I started using it maybe 10 years ago, perhaps more. It was Tableau 5. I'm going way, way, way back when people like Jonathan Drummond, you don't really hear so much anymore in the Tableau world, when they were like the first ever experts in the field before the term Zen Master even existed. I've delivered many, many, many Tableau rollouts across financial services, and financial services is complex. Data permissions are a very thing. So I've had to design and implement a lot of different permissions models within investment banking and asset management. Okay, so when you're looking at permissions, permissions basically define and control who is able to see what data. As I mentioned, in financial services, it's heavily regulated, and it's a very, very, very important component of being able to operate. You're in the front office of an investment bank. What you're allowed to see is strictly controlled. And the controls that exist, sort of maybe in the old world, may not well to Tableau. It's a challenging area to try and work out how to make it work while the legal and regulatory side of it is all good. So I haven't got regulations. You've got Swiss banking law, you've got some Japanese regulations, you've got buy side, sell side, you've got French banking law. If you get into mentioning client names, then you're into a whole different world where in certain places like Malaysia and Switzerland, France, Korea, and only allowed to see the client name within that physical location, or you have a right to know, however that's defined. And if you're getting into naming people, then you're into another world of complication. Not GDPR, obviously. This mainly affects, say, HR departments, compliance departments. But again, there's the right to know as well. So maybe you've got a management hierarchy, and someone 3 levels up has the right to see your information. It depends. It's that right to know. And implementing these things can be a big challenge. But one thing that is very clear, the business should own data permissions. They shouldn't be up to a BI team or Tableau team, however you want to name it, to own those permissions, not to decide who can see what. It's like, as a Tableau, you probably don't know who Fred Blogs in New York is and what they should be allowed to see. It should never be to make that decision. the business should be telling you who is able to see what. Now, it's your job to apply those permissions, to implement those permissions into the data, which to a general rule around permissions. They have to be maintainable and implementable. So I've written down one there. Let's say users are able to see sales, but they have to store sales and profit in separate data sources to abide by that. But they also need to be maintainable, obviously, and in big, complex organizations, or any big organization actually, people are joining regularly, people are leaving regularly, and people are changing roles regularly, which all impacts permissions. So you can't have a system where an individual in a BI team is charged with looking after that. You've got a beast. It has to be automated as possible. Okay, so there are two ways to look at permissions in Tableau. You've got your role level permissions, which defines if a user can see a record of data within a data set. Or you can put permissions against an object. Effectively means, is this person able to see this object exists? So I'll elaborate a little bit on that on the next slide, but it's fairly self-explanatory. So the role level, they are embedded, usually within a data source. They're implemented using a formula. You generally, well, actually, always in my experience, using the user-related Tableau functions. And the two main ones that I've used in my career are the username, and that simply the person who's logged into the Tableau server. Their name, like Andrew Watson, for example, it was more likely to be a Watson or Watts and, or could even be a code. It's however you're referred to within the directory of the organization. And the is member, use that to check if someone's a member. So it's group people put within groups, generally by role, sometimes by combination. And you are able to check using a formula. If someone is a member of the group, they can see that record or they can't see that record. Now, username, I don't want to get into too much technical detail here because I'm conscious of time, but sort of in older Tableau, most you would use string. And what does that mean? Basically just a whole concatenated list of everyone's username who's allowed to see that record, and then you would use a calculated field to see if the person logged in, the username function exists in that long string of permissions, and if they do, then they can see that raw data, and if they don't, then they can't. As Tableau's increasing its sophistication with the relationships, data model, joining becomes more feasible. Right? In the past, it wasn't really, because it created these huge ballooned data sources. So permission is always preferable. Now, I say permission string and use a formula. I've put some formula examples here, which you can use to define if someone wants to see a record. For example, username equals a Watson. Assuming that's me, obviously. If that returned true, then you can see that record. Or the permission string example, if the username is within the permission string, great. If you're a member of the sales management group, then you were able to see that raw record. It returned true. And you can combine things. So if you're a member of the North group, and the region being also North, then you have to see that record. You can mix and match different fields within your data source to create a formula. True or false to show yes, you can see the data, or no, you can't. Okay, object permissions. So you can define permissions, as far as I know, at project, subproject, workbook, and view level. We want to use the view permission to know if someone is actually able to see the object. You can assign permissions at both the group level and the user level, but at all of those levels, I strongly recommend you only stick to permissioning the groups. Now, there are rare occasions where you may have to permission a specific user for some reason. Try and avoid it. It's like I mentioned before, the maintainability. In these big organizations, everyone is just a cog in the machine, and people come, people go, including yourselves, and including the people who you might commission as an individual user, and it becomes difficult to keep that accurate over time, increasingly difficult over time. So finishing up a group level only. Now, a great thing about using this is user experience. I've seen service with 1,000 dashboards on there. It's complete overkill, but I've seen it before. And from a user perspective, all of that, it's just going to confuse you, detract your experience using what's on there, and it's going to make it harder to find information. And why do people in banking use Tableau? They use it to get information. So you want to make it as simple as possible. So for example, if you're create a group for sales and create a project for sales, and only let that user, that group, so consequently that user, see all the other things on HR or trading or marketing, whatever, completely irrelevant to the sales guy. That person doesn't care. They only want to know about things that are relevant to them. So only show it to them. Easy for one other thing with groups, I might mention this next slide as well, but a massive positive about it. Remember, I said you should never own the permissions. So you can synchronize AD group, Tableau, and you should. Almost all organizations have an existing process to add people in AD group. So you can just piggyback off that process. It also makes everything, it's somebody else's responsibility to make sure the right people. And you just use an existing, it makes that easy for everybody. And sort of wrapping up, how to sort of high level. So my recommendation is that ever own a data permissions model. Ever, you don't own it, you just implement it. When it comes to showing who is able to see the dashboards, so you use groups, but permission at a project level only and down through the project. So everything within the project inherits the same permissions. Don't start putting permissions at a view level. Create yourself a nightmare to administer later on. Plus, you'll be setting a precedent. Fred Smith has got it. Why can't I have it? So, only permission groups. Remember, I said earlier, use AD groups because they have the existing process for adding people and taking people away. It's not your responsibility to look after that. And because it's such a regulatory, horrible area, you do not want responsibility for it. Actually, nobody wants responsibility. Already somebody who does elsewhere, so use that. Great for their user experience, only showing them what is relevant to them. Now, row level permissions. If possible, and it's almost always possible, extract them from another system. As an example, I did a project with an asset manager about client experience and how would you define who is able to see what, and it was a challenging conversation with the business. Nobody really wanted to own it, but then we worked out a way to just extract permissions from Salesforce. So we simply extracted those permissions. It gave us, Salesforce gave us all the client IDs, all of the different users who were able to see that client. We just pull it down, do a little bit of manipulation behind the scenes, and use that to build our permission. Just pull that down, refresh that every day, or what? And you've got a list, an up-to-date list of accurate permissions coming from Salesforce, an existing process to define who is able to see them. Now, it doesn't always, so sometimes you need to combine your low-level permissions with groups. Using that Salesforce CRM example, so it's expensive to permission somebody in Salesforce. The user that doesn't use Salesforce, for example, well, they probably won't have a Salesforce license. It's very expensive just to add people to Salesforce, only to overcome a way around that. Senior management, you can argue, have a right to know about the data and the clients. So you can create a group and put those senior managers in there who are not permissioned and licensed within Salesforce, and using your formula. So, for example, if is member of senior management or is in this, users are able to see that client and they're able to see the client. It's a workaround, and it's a pragmatic way using what is already existing to enable people all across the business to see information that is relevant to them. And people actually only want to see information that's relevant to them. If you permission someone to see everything, if they're sat in London trying to sell to clients in London, they don't care about what's happening in Tokyo. It's just noise for them. But one other thing, I was working at a big investment bank, and we were trying with data sources, and we had a few data sources that were interesting to traders and to people who looked after clients. Now, I didn't want to create the same data source 3 times for these different groups, so embedding 3 different row-level permissions models into one data source. So depending on what group they were in, define which permissions model it did the check against. So you can multiple permissions in a data source. But yeah, so I guess my overriding advice is piggyback off what is already existing as much as you possibly can. Okay, and that's me. So I just want to say thank you for inviting me along to do this, and I am happy that the internet stayed active through that and dragged into problems with loading the van. So I have to leave now and get stuck into the removals. So thank you for having me.
Thanks for doing that, Andrea. I really appreciate it, juggling your day around this. That was a great presentation. Thank you very much. And good luck with the move.
Cheers. Bye, everyone.
Steve, do you want to pop your camera on and come to the stage? You're next. There he is. Hi, Steve. Just want to introduce Steve. Actually, he's the first person, or is the person responsible for me getting into Tableau. He gave me a 10-minute presentation and blew my socks off in 2014. So it's all his fault. I'm so obsessed now with Tableau. But I'll let you share your screen and crack on.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, my name's Steve Adams. I'm going to try. Oh, look at that. In Tableau. So there normally I do this in a presentation with a bit of animation, so I apologize, you're going to get dumped in very quickly. I work with team leaders who want to transition their teams from being report writers through to being agile analysts using Tableau. And one of the things that we found quite useful in that process is the use of and the reuse of setting up templates. Why do we find templates useful? Well, typically people will have frustrations around dashboard layouts taking too much time. If we've got corporate branding and style guides that need to be applied, it's also a little bit of a frustration to be able to do that every single time to each dashboard from scratch. And also without templates, we tend to end up with an inconsistent look and feel across our dashboards, which is not good for us, and it's certainly not good for our users. And typically we find that the time to deliver always takes longer than we expect, but more importantly, than our stakeholders expect. So one of the things that we can get out of templates is that we can increase some productivity in the dashboard building process itself. We can also assist our users in gaining familiarity of what and how to best use a dashboard, because we're using things over and over again in a consistent way, and they learn that process with us, and that allows us to upskill them in their data journey as well. And also by reducing the time building the dashboard itself, it means that we can focus more on the analytics, so we can bring the right analytics into those dashboards. And fundamentally what we're looking to do therefore is speed up the speed to market, the speed of production, and also speed up the insights that our users are getting from our dashboards. Bear in mind, I've only got a few minutes, so we're only going to be looking at one particular template, but I wanted to just talk about different types of report characteristics that there are out there, because different report characteristics do require different templates. And building the template itself is what takes time, and I'll explain a little bit about that later. But for example, at the bottom of our pyramid here, we see that we can build reports which are almost static, which are giving messages on a plate to our users over here, and we are typically developing those reports each time we need to produce one. So it's a relatively static insights generating report. Then moving up that pyramid, we get into a navigation approach where we might be delivering insights at a high level to our users. And from there, they want to then navigate to the areas which require further investigation. And that will then take us to our types of reports which enable more and more questions to be delivered. And they're much more interactive. And typically when we're asking a question of a dashboard, it's not just the first question that we need to answer in order to get through to action. We need multiple tiers, and it may be that one dashboard is allowing us to go through those different tiers, or we need to yet again navigate back over to other dashboards to help us get to the point. Fundamentally what we want to achieve is action. So we want our dashboards to create insights, but also to deliver actionable insights quickly. So one of the approaches we do is we then build up various different wireframing approaches to help us design our dashboards. And a wireframe is something that we do outside of Tableau. We don't want to be sucked into what we've currently got and also what our current capabilities are to be able to present something quickly. But it's all very tempting to throw a wireframe prototype dashboard together in Tableau, but that can actually detract from the conversation that you need to have with your team and colleagues, but also with your stakeholders. So typically what we'll do is we'll start off with a whole bunch of different templates. This is a very, very simple one, just for the purposes of this demonstration. Typically, we've built up a number of different templates for those different types of reports. But fundamentally what this is a 4x4 grid. And it's not that I want to include 16 different worksheets in any one of my dashboards. Normally that's way too many, but it does help me structure how I want to lay out my dashboard. So in my use case today, what I've done is I've got some analysis here, which I've stolen like an artist from Sam Parsons, who's a Zen Master. And I'll be able to provide links to the places where I have actually taken content from. So Sam's built a dashboard, and I've taken some of the worksheets from that dashboard, and I'm going to compile it into a dashboard in a moment. So we've already done the analysis, firstly. And like any good analyst, we've thrown away 80% of our work and we've focused just on the 20%, which is going to really add value. We've applied that 80-20 rule to ourselves as well. So we know which pieces of analysis we want to bring into our wireframe. And then we want to sit down with our stakeholders and our teammates to identify how we want to lay that out. So in this case, the gray areas are the worksheets, and we've got 6 different assets that we're going to bring into this dashboard. They've got names of subcategory profits, so we know what they are, and we can see how we're going to then order the process that our users will go through to analyze this particular dashboard. I've also got the names up here, etc., etc. So that's our wireframing process, which we've done beforehand. Now what I want to do then is to introduce you to one template which can help facilitate this. Now I've also taken this from Andy Kriebel, a VizWizBiz, and it was from a blog post that he did with a video backing it up, which is actually how he's using containers to build his dashboards. And I've used that as a starting point because it's a really useful approach to actually building up a template with containers in the right way, so that we've actually got pretty standardized formatting. So you can see here that the color green, maybe your corporate branding is coming in here. That's going to be your standardized color you're going to apply. In addition to that, there'll be standardized fonts from your style guides that you want to apply, whether that be size, but also the font type, and whether it's bold or italics, etc., etc. All of those typically are standards that you're applying. But in addition to that, we've also got, in this case, green space, but you can imagine the concept of white space in between our worksheets. And because these worksheets themselves are all slotted into multiple different containers, actually setting that up takes quite a bit of time. So the idea of creating a template like this is that you can then reuse that and not have to do all that padding and playing around with that each and every single time you're pulling together a dashboard. So that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this dashboard and start building this up from scratch. So the first thing we'll do is we'll just wander back to our completed wireframe, and we'll notice at the top row here is a whole bunch of labels. In this case, they're really just going to be text labels. I don't think they need to be dynamic based upon the conversations I've already had. But if they were going to be dynamic, then I'd need a worksheets to go in there as well, perhaps. But in this case, we're just going to use text. And on the left-hand side, we can see that we've got two vertical columns. And then on the right-hand side, we've got three horizontal rows. So in that case, we've chosen the template which facilitates that the best. And you'll notice in my naming convention here, I've got 2V by 4H. Because if I were to go to my layout, we'll see that that's the layout of the containers that we're actually looking at. We have a vertical container. Hopefully you can see that okay, which inside there is a horizontal container and a blank line for that white line to separate everything. And then we get into the meat of where everything is sitting. And within this one horizontal container, we then have a horizontal container and a vertical container. And within that horizontal container, then we have those two verticals, and we then have our 4 horizontals, which is giving us the name of this particular template. In addition to that, we've also got over here a hidden container layout. Now, normally your templates will include a whole bunch of different ways that you want to provide additional information to your user. And those templates will probably have little forks depending on the types of usage you're going to have. In this case, if I just click on option and show you, it's a hidden container, and I can put my filters in there, and then I can just close it out again. I'm not going to get around to doing that in today's demonstration, but you can see that that one particular idea might be suitable for some applications, but in other cases you might want different types of containers with different information in there. Maybe the analytics in there, maybe there's ones for specific for a help guide, etc., etc. Lots of different ways you can apply that, and that will modify some of your templates. So the first thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to look at bringing in oh no, I've got a sheet here, and I want to put a sheet here, and I want to put a sheet in here, a sheet in here, a sheet in here, and a sheet in here. So I'm now going to slightly modify my current starting point of this particular container template to facilitate that. So I'm going to delete these worksheets, which are no longer required, to get us to a starting point. And I am going to click on this particular one and replace it with my first worksheet, which is my subcategory. You'll notice if I select an object here and hover over the one I want to replace it with, we get that little swap that comes up. I can just click on swap sheets, And now a few things are resized based upon the sheet size that's coming into there as well. Likewise, I can now replace this one with my analysis, which we've already identified as the key analysis we want to bring in. And over on the right-hand side, I want to remove this worksheet because we've just got one object, which is going to replace this one, which is called our product orders. Takes a little bit of time, this, because there's quite a lot of rows on here. The default was fit to view, so that's showing a big gray blob because there's too many rows. So we can change that now to fit width instead. And likewise, we've got some big ass numbers which we wanted to bring in. So we're going to replace these two blocks here with unit profit, big ass number, and this one with the order cadence, big ass number. These ones don't need our titles on here, so we're going to remove those titles. And we're getting to a point where we can start playing around with how we actually want to finish off our product. Down here, I'm going to remove this and replace that with our customer delivery. Now, because we've actually removed a few things on the right-hand side, you can see things aren't quite aligned over here because we've got different padding, but that's much easier and much quicker now for us to just finish that off, because we can see that our objects itself has got a 5 padding on the right-hand side. I don't want that because it's actually butted up against the container itself, which has got the right padding in it. So I'm going to do the same thing on those two worksheets. Now, quite obviously, there's a lot more to do with finishing off this dashboard in terms of adding in the interactivity, but we've got a much cleaner starting point now to be able to do that. The last thing we want to do then is bring in our text boxes. So we're going to bring in a text box here, and this is our style guide is telling us this is the color and size and font that we should be applying here, and we're going to put in total profit. Likewise, I can now delete that because we no longer use that. Bring in a text box over here, which is going to be our if I'd have set this up properly, I probably would have set the defaults to automatically be the right size for these text boxes. I didn't get around to doing that for this particular workbook. And you can see as we are adapting, we're bringing in what we want to do. And likewise, as I mentioned over here, we probably might want to bring in some other filters that we can pop into this particular hidden container over here. If I open that up, we can then bring in a filter from here and drag that into that container. So we actually got all those components in there as well. That is the demo that I wanted to run through with you. I'll be very, very happy to take some questions. My suggestion, of course, is that over time you build up a library of wireframes which will meet various different usages. And in fact, the way to do that library is not by building up the library as a standalone exercise. The idea is that you would bring up a new requirement which isn't met by your current template. You would then take your template requirement, your new dashboard requirement, and build up your new template. And then from that starting point of the new template, you can apply that elsewhere, and then you start building up your dashboard from there. I've got literally one question. I will need more questions now, Ella. Feel free to throw me some more. The question from Vicky is, are these templates available to download? What I can do is send you links after this, Ella, for the Andy Kriebel blog post, which is how to build that KPI dashboard, which is what we used as a starting point for that particular template. And then also the link to the Tableau public dashboard from Sam Parsons, which is where we took those worksheets from as an example. My suggestion is that you really want to build up your own templates because you need to incorporate your own style guides in them. And yes, it does take a little bit of time to build those up, and you can certainly use those as a starting point. But if you think about what style guides you want to bring in terms of the padding, whether it's 4 between gaps, whether it's 8 between gaps or 16, or whether it's Tableau regular or Tableau bold you want to be using, all of those things need to be built up and from the template. Happy to distribute the workbook that I've created today as well, if that would be useful as well.
That'd be fab. Thank you very much, Steve. That was really cool. Thank you. And Lorna, you're up.
Thanks very much. There's thanks in the chat for Steve as well to say thank you for that talk. So let me share my screen. Elle, can you just confirm that you can see Tableau for me?
I can see. Set it up. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so I am standing between you and the quiz. So I'm going to try and wrap this up within the next 10 minutes. And today, what I'm going to be talking about is all of the different combinations of the set actions that you can do within Tableau. So once again, my name is Lorna Brown. I'm one of your Northwest TUG hosts, and like Ella introduced, I do have a Tableau desktop cookbook coming out at the end of August, beginning of September, and there's some quick links down at the bottom there that I can share in the chat later, so you can go and pre-order the book if you would like. So one of the things with set actions is they came into Tableau in version 2018.2, I think, but most recently they've actually had an update so that you can have different combinations of the way that you use set actions. So within this dashboard here, this is a Workout Wednesday, 2020 week 25, if anybody would like to take a go at it. But essentially what I'm doing within this workbook is I'm adding things to and from my dashboard. So if I click on Italian style, you'll see that I have the option to add it or remove it from my pizza. So I can add Italian style and I can then remove the classic style. And this is all using those set actions. So I can change the size by clicking on size. That's clearly not working right now. But you kind of get the drift in terms of you click on a category, you can then use set actions to be able to bring through those particular values. But how do you go about doing that? So here is a version of all of the ingredients that I want within the pizza. I therefore want to be able to click on an option to add it to my set. So the first thing I need to do is I need to create that option. So the original set is just called Pizza 1. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to use the product option to create a new set. So this is just going to be called pizza. And in here, I'm just going to select some random things so that I can show you whether it's in or out of the set itself. So I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to add that to my view in here. So I can now see what's in, let me do it on this side, what's in or out of my set. And with the set actions, if I go to worksheet and actions, in here, there is no actions for this particular worksheet, but I can add action and go to change set values. Now, whenever I'm creating a set action within a worksheet, I have the option to select the specific worksheet, some of the dashboards, or the actual data source. But for now, I'm just going to click the set actions options. I'm just going to call this pizza. So you have the option to select how you want to run the action on. And I think that really does depend on what actions you're doing at the bottom. So I'm going to tell Tableau which set I want to update. And then we have 3 running the actions will and 3 clearing the selections will. Now, even though I've said I'm going to go through all of the options, some of the options don't always make sense in terms of when you have one, it kind of interacts with the clearing the selection will. So think about this as best as you can. So the first thing I'm going to do is, this is the default option. So assign values to set and then add all values. So what that does is, when I click OK and OK again, is when I click on one product, it's going to put that one in. And if I click off it, it's going to add them all into my set. So again, I can highlight those three. It's then going to include those three in my set. But when I click off, it's going to include everything. So that's option number one. And again, it does really depend on what it is that you want to do. The next option within our set actions is, if I leave the assign values to set, I'm going to change this one to keep set values. So I'm going to click OK and OK again. And now when I click, when I highlight ground beef and ham, you can see that they're both set as in. And when I click off of that, they still remain as in my set. However, now when I add more things to my set, obviously I can keep highlighting things and it's going to just take the current selection. But once I do that and click off it, there's then no way for me to be able to remove items from my set, except from highlighting again and unclicking off it. So I'd have to make the same selection every single time I want to be able to use this particular set. And finally, the last option within that set actions is remove all values from set. So again, what happens here is when I hover over things, it'll become in my set. And when I click off, everything would then become out of my set. But now you're probably thinking about, okay, you've gone through the right-hand side, but what's actually the selection process? So if I go to actions again and edit this one, and this time we want to add values to set instead. So what the add values to set does is, you'll notice that it automatically changed to keep set values. And again, this is great because what I can do is I can click on individual items and keep adding into my set. And when I click off it, it'll just keep those set values. But again, if I miraculously want all of those values in my set, there's no real way of being able to remove them from this set option. I can also click on a bar, and let me just turn on the command buttons. I can click this option, which then allows me to remove it from a particular set when you have your command options on. But if you want the user to be able to interact with your dashboard instead of having to find which one they're working with, that's going to be a bit of an issue. So now the other option with this is if I edit this option, and I'm going to change this to remove values from set, but then keep set values. So with this now in mind, when I hover over those four, it's then going to remove them from my set. And again, once I've removed everything from my set, there's no way of getting those back into my set. So just be careful when you are using both of those options within your set actions. And one thing I would say is, with the Workout Wednesday, what I actually did was, I'm going to change this to remove from pizza. And this time I'm going to do it on the menu. I'm going to leave it as remove and keep set values. And I'm going to add a new action, which is going to be add to pizza. On the menu, to the same set, and this time it's going to be add values to set and keep set values. Therefore, when I now go into my dashboard on my worksheet, when I click on something, I have the option to either add or remove. So when I add, it's going to add it into my set. And again, I can highlight this one, add it to my set, highlight some of these, and again, add to pizza. But if I've changed my mind and I don't want a small pizza anymore, I can click on this one and select remove from pizza instead, and then add to pizza for a different size. And having that control of being able to include what's in or out of your set is really, really important when you're using these set actions. And the other thing that's come in most recently is the ability to have set control. So if I show my set on here, this looks like just a normal filter. So I can just keep ticking things to add into my set to give that user another option of being able to include or exclude from my set. I can then add that to filters to only show what's inside my set, and therefore it also helps on performance as well. So I can keep ticking through these, and it's going to help that performance issue if you have too many quick filters. And then finally, just one last thing, you can create set drill downs. And what I mean by that is when I click furniture, it's then only going to show my subcategories for that particular furniture. So what we need to do here is I right click and create a set on my category. I'm just going to select furniture for now. And then I'm going to say create a calculation of subcat, which is does my category set equal category? Sorry, that is meant to say if category set, then give me the subcategory. End. Click OK. And I'm just going to add that to my rows instead of my subcategory. And then finally, it's just a case of adding the action again. So I'm going to add a new set action, change this to my category set, and I'm going to use this to assign values to set and keep set values. Add all values to set. Remove values would be best actually on this one. Again, give it a name so people can understand what's happening. Click OK, OK again. And now when I select office supplies, you'll see that it's only giving me the drill down for office supplies. And once again, with technology, when I click off, it goes away and hides that. So it's definitely worth using sets and set actions. They're super powerful and can be used by everyone and anyone. So once again, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed that. And it's now time for the quiz.
That was fab, Lorna. This is why you are a Zen Master.
I think there's one question actually. Will this be in your new book? If so, it shows as September here in the US for the release. Are you still on target? And there's some set actions within the book, yes. And I'm still on target to release for end of August, September. I think it just depends on how quick I can get through the rest of production, but it gets sent to the printers hopefully at the end of July. So fingers crossed it gets sent through shortly. So thanks for the question.
So someone needs to do a bit of filling. Have you got any?
Yeah.
Tableau?
No, I don't think so.
Do you want to go on about your book again?
Well, I mean, no. It's been a real experience to be able to write the book. I don't think I'd been able to have done it without having the support of the Tableau community. And you've all really inspired me to be able to give back to the Tableau community at all times. So thank you, everyone.
Sorry.
Whether you know it or not, you have helped, and hopefully you will enjoy the book. Welcome back, Colin.
Sorry, I clicked the wrong tab. My fault.
Oh, you did. Okay, so next up, we do have Sarah Bartlett, who's going to be talking about being certified, how to get certified in Tableau Desktop. I think Sarah's about now. Sarah, if you'd like to join me on the stage.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
Stage is yours whenever you're ready.
Brilliant, thank you. Let me just share my screen. You okay to see? You can see that okay?
Yep, all good.
Great. And it's no full screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for the introduction, Lorna. So as you said, I'm going to be talking about getting certified in Tableau Desktop. Just before I begin, a little bit about me. So I work as a senior consultant at Slalom, based in London. I'm a Tableau Zen Master, a Tableau Social Ambassador. I co-lead the London TUG, and I'm also the founder of the Iron Quest community project. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me pretty much everywhere as Sarah Loves Data. So that's Twitter, and also my blog, sarahlovesdata.co.uk. In terms of my professional background, I've been working in analytics for over 12 years. I've been using Tableau for 7 years. I've been consulting for 4 years, and when I started consulting, I started taking Tableau certifications. So I got my certified associate in 2018, professional in 2019, and most recently I got my associate consultant certification in 2020, which is something that's only open to Tableau partners. But today I'm going to be focusing on those, the specialist exam, the associate exam, and the professional exam for desktop. Not going to touch on any of the server certifications at all, but they do exist. And if you want to know any more about them, I'm sure you can put some questions in the chat. But before I begin, you might be asking, you know, why should I bother getting certified? Maybe you've considered it in the past and been put off perhaps by the cost or the effort involved. But it's something I do really encourage, and I try and talk about this topic as much as possible because I think there's a lot of benefits you can get from getting certified. So in terms of the benefits that I've found personally, it can really help to test your knowledge and fill in any gaps that you have. So I think Tableau suggests you should wait about 3 months before taking your first certification, that being the specialist, but I waited about 3 or 4 years before taking my first certification. But what I found when I was studying for that certification is there was things that I'd never used in Tableau that I was forced to learn for part of the exam prep. So it really did help me to test my knowledge and see where I was like lacking skills, and then go away and strengthen those skills, and then ultimately learn more about what the platform can do. Getting certified is a great way to prove your skills. Perhaps you've got a Tableau public portfolio, which is great. Perhaps you don't. But if you're going for a new job and you want to prove that you actually know what you're talking about, having a certification on your CV can be really beneficial. And it's kind of certifies not only that you know what you're talking about, but you're really serious about this stuff, and you've gone to the extra effort to get that certification. Obviously, that will help you stand out from the crowd as well. And the great thing about getting certified is you can get some swag and badges, and who doesn't love badges and swag? But you can get things like T-shirts and pins if you go to Tableau conference, if you go on the certification journey. So that's always a good benefit. Now, in terms of the certification paths for desktop, there are 3 certifications, as I mentioned before. So you'd start at the specialist level normally, and then go to associate and then professional. You can actually start at the associate level if you wish. There's no prerequisite that you have to do the specialist first. The specialist was a newer exam that was brought in probably about 2 to 3 years ago now. So previously, the initial level would have been the certified associate. But let's talk about the specialist exam first, as that's kind of the entry level exam that Tableau suggests you get started with. So in terms of the format of this exam, it's 1 hour long. It consists of 30 multiple choice questions. You have to get 70% or more to pass. And the great thing about it is it's valid forever. So once you've got it and you've passed, it will remain on your CV, unlike the other certifications which do expire after a number of years. And this one is the cheapest of the 3, so it costs $100 to take it. They're currently testing on version 2020.1. So generally speaking, Tableau are a couple of versions behind when it comes to certification. So you're never going to be tested on the latest version and be expected to know all of the new latest features. In terms of the cost as well, always look out for any deals that Tableau are running. Quite often they might run offers where it's like 20% off for a month or something. So keep an eye out for that. So there is a chance you could get some money off. As I said before, there's no prerequisites for this exam. You can go straight in and take it. Tableau suggests you should have been using Tableau for 3 months before trying it out. But that's obviously going to depend on how much you actually use Tableau and to what level you're using it as well. Like, versus, are you creating new things, or are you just interacting with dashboards perhaps other people have shared with you? In terms of the format of the exam, it's 30 multiple choice questions, 22 of those of which are theoretical. So it will ask you questions about, can Tableau do this or not? And then 8 hands-on questions. And for the hands-on questions, you'll be using Tableau desktops, connecting to data and trying to get to an answer. So perhaps Tableau will say, can you tell us which state had the highest profit in July? So you'd have to use a dashboard or build something up to be able to get you that answer. The interesting thing is, though, is you don't submit your workbooks. So it doesn't matter how you get to that answer. The most important thing is you're able to get to the correct answer from the multiple choice list. And interestingly, this exam is open book, which means you can use Google. But I would say don't rely on that too heavily, because you will run out of time if you're Googling every answer. In terms of what's covered in the exam, I've listed all the things here. I won't go through them all, but essentially the exam covers everything from connecting to data sources to building a dashboard, and everything in between. It doesn't go down to a deep kind of level in each of these things, but you do need to know how to do them, and you do need to understand the basic functionality and what kind of Tableau's doing behind the scenes. In terms of calculations, on this exam, you'd only be tested on basic calculations, quick table calculations, things like that. You're not going to be asked to do anything like a nested LOD or anything to that level. There's lots of tips out there that have been shared by the community. Unsurprisingly, a lot of people have taken this exam and they've been kind enough to share blog posts and tips. I've tried to pull these together. Always on the lookout for new blogs on this, but I think everyone shares some commonality in what they suggest. So I think number one with all of these exams is to get hands-on in Tableau. You really need to use Tableau to learn it well. Don't just try and sit back and watch videos of people using Tableau. Really try and use it yourself. You'll just learn so much more. And there's so many resources out there from the community, such as blogs, videos, all kinds of stuff. There's no shortage of that kind of content. If you want to have a look at a blog series around how somebody actually attempted the exam themselves and how they kind of worked out a learning plan, definitely have a look at Christine Reitman's blog series. She was a student who went through the certification journey and documented every step of her learning, which is really interesting. As always, familiarise yourself with the exam study guide, which is provided by Tableau. It will provide you with some sample exam questions, and it will tell you the weighting of the exam, like each part of the exam, and it will give you some suggestions on what you should study. And if you want to test yourself, definitely check out learningtableau.com. On learningtableau.com, they have some free quizzes, so like free practice papers that you can run through for this exam. You can also pay around, I think it's about £10, and get access to more quizzes. And the great thing about these quizzes is not only do they mimic like the real thing, they actually give you a breakdown of how to get to some of the hands-on answers as well. So it can be really helpful if you get stuck to understand where you've gone wrong. And there's also some courses that complement those quizzes on Udemy as well. Okay, so the next exam in the series is the Certified Associate exam. So this is quite similar to the Specialist, but it goes a little bit deeper. So it's 2 hours long, costs a little bit more, so it's $250. Again, they're testing on 2020.1 at the moment. It's fully multiple choice, so 36 multiple choice questions, but there are a portion of hands-on questions as well, just like the Specialist exam. Pass mark is 75%, and it's only valid for 2 years, so just bear that in mind. There's no prerequisites, so like I said, you could start at this level and completely skip the Specialist exam if you wanted to. Tableau suggests you should have been using the product for 5 months before attempting this exam. Again, it all depends on how much you're using it and how confident you feel, perhaps. I waited 3 years or 4 years, so longer than 5 months. The focus in this exam and on the Specialist exam is on accuracy rather than the journey. So like I said before, it doesn't matter how you get to an answer as long as you get to the right answer. And in terms of the multiple choice questions, expect things like multiple response, like which of these are true, for example, true or false, and then the hands-on element as well. In terms of topic weightings, the biggest ones that stand out here are data connections and calculations. So on the data connections, you will be asked questions around data connections, and you'll also need to connect to some data to actually visualize it to get to some of the hands-on answers. You might need to do a join or blend or union, I don't know, but it's important that you understand what those things are and how to do them. And then calculations comes up at 18%. So you need to be familiar with doing calculations in Tableau, not to a really, really high advanced level, but you need to be confident in doing the things you'd expect to do day to day. In terms of suggested learning materials, I mean, very similar to the other exam, I'd say look at what's out there in the community, look at the videos that Tableau provide on their website. They're all completely free and they're broken down into bite-sized chunks. So there's videos that are 4 to 5 minutes long on specific topics. Try and get involved in some community projects to give you more hands-on experience. So things like Make of a Monday or Workout Wednesday are really great for that. There's some really good YouTube channels out there that are run by people in the community, such as Tableau Tim or Andy Kriebel. They're always putting out new content. There's books here. I realize I haven't got Lorna's new book, but definitely check out Lorna's new book. But also have a look at Practical Tableau by Ryan Sleeper and the Big Book of Dashboards. So it was always great around like teaching you new tricks. And when I was studying for this exam, things I found particularly useful were similar to the specialist, looking at the study guide, utilizing learningtableau.com. When you're working through the hands-on questions, try and break the questions down into steps. So if you're presented with a question that says, what was the profit in California in July 2019, then perhaps apply a filter that filters it down to 2019 and then to July 2019, and then to California. So then at least you can limit your data down to just to that place where you want to focus. I find that particularly useful. And there were a couple of things that tripped me up in this exam. So, and they're included in the study guide, but definitely have a look at things like trend lines, p-squared and r-values. You might be expected to explain what those are. Be confident explaining box plots and what the bit in the middle means. And also be confident understanding when you might need to use an LOD calculation versus when you might use a table calculation instead. Okay, so the final exam in the desktop series is the professional exam. So no surprise, this is the longest one and the most expensive of the three. It's 3 hours long and it costs $600, so it is quite a commitment. Current version is 2020.1 again. Unlike the other two, this is completely different in the sense it's 100% hands-on. So there's no theoretical questions and you actually build up a Tableau workbook as you go and you submit that workbook at the end and it's tested based on a scoring rubric, and it looks at things like have you followed analytical best practices and things like that. So it's not theory based at all. And this exam is valid for 3 years. Now, unlike the others, there is a prerequisite. So before taking this exam, you need to have taken the associate certification. And then once you have this one, it kind of trumps the other one. So you wouldn't have to renew your associate certification, but you'd be expected to renew this one every 3 years. Tableau suggests you should have been using the product for 12 months or more before attempting this exam. But again, it just depends. But the focus here is on visual best practices, technical skills, and storytelling. There's some short questions in this exam, so it might be how can you improve the look of this chart, or maybe suggest a better chart to use, and then longer scenario-based questions. So you'll be presented with a data set, and you'll have to tell stories around that data set and build up to creating a dashboard, which you then submit. The learning materials are exactly the same as what I've suggested for the other exams. The only addition I've put on here is to have a look at the visual analysis best practices white paper. This is put out by Tableau, and in this white paper, it kind of tells you what they'd expect to see in terms of best practices. So it can be really helpful, not only for the exam, but also if you want to understand how you should be presenting your data in the best possible way. In terms of my tips, again, read the study guide and attempt the practice questions. There aren't many, but they are helpful, the ones that are there. With this exam, it's all about practice and getting speedier. So you only have 3 hours. That 3 hours will go by very, very quickly. So try and get better at producing things quickly in Tableau. So that's where things like Make of a Monday or Workout Wednesday can come in really handy. Focus on when you're studying, focus on things like parameters. So be confident using parameters to get a top N, to do sheet swapping and things like that. You may or may not be tested on nested LOD calculations, so be sure to have a look at those and be confident on how you can apply those. You may be expected to do a data join or blend or use the relationship model, so be familiar with that. Story points may come up, so I know a lot of people don't use story points, but just be sure you understand how you can use them. And again, just consider visual best practices throughout this exam. It's not IronViz. You're not expected to produce something that's really shiny and nice to look at, but it needs to follow those best practices. So to recap quickly, here's a summary of all the exams that I've gone through. I will share the slides afterwards, plus you can find all this information on the Tableau website. And I'm conscious I'm probably over time, so I'm just going to go really, really quickly through some exam tips. So each of these exams are proctored, and what I mean by that is that you'll do these virtually, and you do them on a virtual machine, and you're overseen by somebody who's dials in remotely and watches you, just to make sure that you're not cheating or talking to anybody else, or maybe you have the answers on your desk and you're copying it in. They just watch that you're not doing any of that. You will be expected to show them your official photo ID to prove who you are, so like a passport or a driving license, and they will expect to be able to see your surroundings on your webcam just to make sure that you're alone. I've heard about stories where people have been talking to themselves and the proctors thought that they were talking to somebody else. So just be careful if you're likely to talk to yourself. Maybe just try and not do that. And then during the exam, the remote desktop experience can be a little bit strange. So just familiarize yourself with the setup, familiarize yourself with the scoring framework, which is shown at the beginning of each exam. You don't have to follow the exams in any particular order. You could start at the end and work backwards, or you can skip questions as you go. The remote experience has a bookmark feature, so if you get stuck on a question, you can bookmark it and come back to it later. And yeah, just remember to be calm, breathe. You can have a drink, just take it easy. Don't get too stressed out. And of course, when you've completed all these certifications, definitely share your success. So shout about it from the rooftops, put it on social media, tell your colleagues, put it on LinkedIn. It's always great to see when somebody gets certified. But thank you. Hopefully that was helpful. If you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to me, or you can ask some questions here. I'll be sticking around for a while. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sarah. That was a great presentation. I really should get myself certified professional. I just
haven't got it.
No, God. Still just avoiding that 3-hour exam.
Yeah, it's quite brutal.
My certified associate runs out in September, so I have a couple of months before I then have to retake that one. So hopefully I'll get it done in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Or
good
before
luck.
September. Thank you. There's currently no questions for you, so thank you again, Sarah. It was great to hear your experiences with the exams.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Next up, we have Kevin, who's going to be talking through DataViz style guides from 1914 to present day. And I want to take a real big thanks to Kevin because it's super early for him over in the US. So thank you so much for your dedication to come in and helping with this Tableau user group today.
Oh, no, thank you for the invite.
Not a problem.
I've been wanting to make a tour of TUGs, so I just thought, hey, I'll just keep volunteering and someone will say, yeah, let's get you started. So here
Absolutely.
I am.
Feel free to share your screen now and get started.
Yeah, it's about 6:30 here in the southeast US, so but I've had plenty of coffee already, so I'm ready to go. And I know I'm the last before the end of the meeting, before you all can get back to, or I guess go to lunch, right? You guys are getting ready to go to lunch. So I put all the important links already over in the chat, so they're already ready for you. And so that's to cover is what's already over in the chat. So you can go grab these already, because I know people are like, oh, are you going to share these? Can we get to them? And so I thought, well, let me just pop those in there for those of you who want to get to these links and play with them, because maybe you haven't seen them before. And that's kind of what I want to do today, is just kind of say, look at some of this cool stuff. So I want to start off with Britain from 1914. If you've never seen this before, it's really a pretty amazing book. Andy Cotgreave has put several things on it about it in his blog. And you can also go out and get the entire book digitally and read through the entire book, which I would encourage you to do. I actually found one, and I have a first edition of the book, which is really pretty cool. So you can occasionally find them, but they're getting pricier as more and more people are wanting to get a copy of it from 1914. There's a really great Medium article from Amy Cecil from the Data Society group that I think everybody should read. We've got some examples of these out on the internet, and I would love for any of you who have your own style guides to add them to our collection. So again, Andy Cotgreave out on his blog about 7 years ago said, hey, look at this really cool book. And again, here you can see, here's the Graphic Methods book. That's the original edition, and I've got a copy of it here in my office. And it's a really cool book, and it just shows how really smart people, no matter what tool they have, can do really good at creating these visualizations if they just have a basic understanding of what they are and what the data is and trying to convey it. So while this one might not be great for the Northwest UK TUG, for all my American colleagues who follow American football, this is American football, not the Euros, which are going on right now. But here in 1914, this is a better visual than the sports analytics people are showing you on the internet today. And it was done more than 100 years ago, and it's really informative, and it's showing the Harvard-Yale game and what happened during the Harvard-Yale game. And ESPN, our sports network, could learn something from what Britain did in 1914. And he's even got examples that on paper are showing what an interactive dashboard would be and how it would operate before we even had interactive dashboards. It also shows some of the common mistakes that people make. Here are in 1914, where they were showing some statistics, and they drove them by on floats, and people stood there and watched them go by. So I guess maybe that's an interactive dashboard. And even by hand, Britain was making 3D charts, which again, best practice, try and stay away from these 3D charts. But again, without a computer, he was able to do this. So people ask for good rules for data design. Well, here's some of Britain's rules in the form of a checklist. You know, first of all, are the data in the chart correct? Do you have the right data? Are you using the best method, the best practice? Several of the presenters already today talked about best practice. Well, what is best practice? And how can I find those things? Again, in these style guides, you can start to see these. Have your figures been copied correctly? Do we have the latest version of this data? Is it accurate? Are you showing 0 on that vertical scale? We always get that one. Even today, people are arguing about the y-axis and what you should do. And Britain has his 1914 version of this. And again, you can go out to the archive with the link that I provided in the chat, and you can get your own version of it. Now, many of you know me from doing color talks. So again, here are my American football players in their color jerseys. This is the only thing that Britain really doesn't talk about, because everything was black and white in Britain's day. And I still would prefer if you all would limit yourself to 3 colors in a chart. And if you use black, white, and gray, that will be the best for those of us who are completely colorblind. So there's a good best practice for you. 3 colors, keep them simple, keep it easy for us who are colorblind, and that's a great method to present your data to everybody, and we'll all be able to see it cleanly. He also has some rules that he has at the end of his book, and so he talks about putting the title on. There was just a Twitter discussion about having titles on the charts and having them centered, less justified, or whether they're even necessary or not. So more than 100 years ago, Brenton had a really cool set of style guides. And again, we tend not to follow best practices. And so we see people making mistakes. Here's Taco Bell, kind of missed the shell there. Here we're saying do not stack, and look how many of them are stacked. Here they're laying the bricks, and here's this one over here. It should be over there. So people tend to not follow these because they don't really know them. And if they have a place where they could know them, even then they may not follow them. But at least if we have a place for folks to see these are the best practices, these are what our organization should be doing, we'll have a better chance of creating better visualizations. So again, here's maybe a biblical reference. There's water, and it's already been turned to wine for us.
Hey,
And then
Kevin.
here's, yeah.
Sorry, we're still seeing the Andy Cockgreave slide on your presentation.
Uh-oh. What happened?
I think we can see the 1914 designers haven't followed directions now.
Okay. Has it come up now?
Which slide are you on? Sorry.
I've got some examples of designers not following directions.
Yeah, so it's not in full screen mode by the looks of it. It's just in PowerPoint mode.
Okay.
Apologies, we probably should have.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because you shared just the PowerPoint. So if you unshare and reshare again. So sorry, I thought you was doing it from the actual the PowerPoint rather than the full screen. Again, we can just see the not the full screen version, just the PowerPoint.
Yeah, that's what and then okay. I started the slideshow.
No, we can't see the PowerPoint. We can only see the not the full screen version.
Huh.
So sorry about this, everyone.
What's going on? Still not?
Nope.
Why?
If you share your full desktop just for the rest of the time, would that be okay?
Well, if I share my desktop. Are you seeing PowerPoint now?
Yeah, we can see the PowerPoint behind it. Again, just not in full screen. So.
It's not full screen now.
Nope. You could just present from PowerPoint itself and just do it like that. That's fine.
Yeah, we'll just do it like this. Let me just run through it quickly because I know we're running out of time. Sorry about that. I'm not sure why it just stopped.
Yeah, not a problem.
Must be too early in the morning. Okay, well, let me just continue on very quickly then. Here's Amy Cecil's article over on Medium. It's a really good article talking about what are data viz style guides and why you should be using them. I came to Amy and I said, well, these are neat, but let's see if we can learn more about this and try and get more people to submit them. So Amy set up a Google Docs, and again, these should be over in the chat for you all. I dumped all these links there for you. She has this Google Doc where she has lots of examples out there. And then she also set it up where you can submit yours. And if you don't want yours to be public, but you want us to include it in our research, I would love for you guys to direct message me or email me, and we can add yours to it, because what we're trying to do is take all these data viz style guides and create a body of knowledge for data visualization. If you go out and you look up, there are several places that have done a body of knowledge for analytics, but nobody has really done a body of knowledge. What are the things you should know? What are the best practices out there? There isn't one out there, and so we're trying to create that body of knowledge, working together with the Data Viz Society. So there are lots of examples that Amy shows. She created one for the Sunlight Foundation back in 2012. It's one of the more recent ones that kind of goes through, but there's the Cato Institute, Dallas Morning News, if you're more into journalism. Here's the BBC's, theirs is really good. Google has theirs out there. Federal government has one. MailChimp has some guidelines out there that are pretty cool that you can take a look at. Again, BBC one is really good and really gets into showing these things for an audience, which they have. The Financial Times has a really good set of vocabulary for data viz and different chart types. And Andy Kreibel has put a version of this out on Tableau Public. Lots of people have stolen it. It kind of he gets upset about it. But you can really learn a lot by looking at all these different types and what are best practices. And then a few years ago, Kevin Florlage joined us in Tableau and became very good at it very fast. And he has a Tableau chart catalog out there, which is really excellent set of 100 of the most used Tableau charts out there. He's got a link to them where you can take a look at them. And he's got the author who created a really good example. And it's about 70 different authors. And I would encourage you all to follow those 70 authors. And here we put it up in the lab, and then here's my kids. And there's my office with all of those different charts that are out there. So again, I encourage you to go look at Brinton from 1914. He's got some really great rules and tips and best practices to follow. There's a link to Amy's article, which is really good, talking about what these style guides are. If you want some examples, we've got the Google Doc out there where you can look at some examples. And please, please, if you have an example and it's publicly available, send us the link. Go to the form, fill out the form, and add to it. And hopefully soon we will have a body of knowledge. This is what is the entire set of best practices. Because again, it's hard to find all those. They're all over the place. We kind of talk about them all the time. Well, this is best practice, but where can we find them? Where do we put them down? I would encourage your organization to have your own style guide. And I would encourage us collectively as a data family to embrace our idea of let's merge them together. Let's find what the top best practices are that everybody is following, and let's create a body of knowledge for those. So again, my apologies for not being able to show this full screen. But if anybody wants the slides, I'll make them available. And I also have a longer version of this that we did for the Tableau Fringe Fest. So if you go to YouTube or go to Google and do a search for Fringe Fest and me, you'll find a longer talk and a longer version of this. But I just wanted to do a short one today. Again, sorry for technical difficulties.
Not a problem. Thanks very much, Kevin. That was really insightful. So having a mix of a style guide and what Steve was talking about with the templates is really where you can take your dashboards to the next level to be able to help understand business users to get to know where they're going to click on certain things. So that style guide really does help with that.
Yeah, and as Steve was presenting, I'm like, this is awesome. Steve has a style guide, and then now he's saying, here's some templates. That's taking it to the next level. But again, a lot of people don't even have that style guide or don't even know where to begin. And so that's why I wanted to give them some points, some places where they can get started.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that one of the style guides that's really, really popular within the Tableau community is the JLL Business Style Guide. And also there's another one, which is the BBC Style Guide here in the UK. If you search on Tableau Public for JLL Style Guide, you'll definitely find that one, and it'll give you some more inspiration as well.
Very good.
Awesome.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Lorna. I really appreciate you guys inviting me.
You're very welcome. Thanks for
fun.
getting up so early to come and do this presentation for us.
It was a fun early morning, so thank you again.
Not no
Thanks,
problem.
Kevin.
Feel free to stop sharing your screen now as well. Perfect. Thank you very much. Elle, do you have any closing words?
Yeah, thanks for coming. I think you can stick around for a couple of minutes and we'll jump back onto table so people can have a quick chat, but I think we are closing at 12, aren't we?
I've extended it for 20 more minutes, so we have till about 12:15 if people do want to stick around.
Perfect. So yeah, you'll jump back on the tables and you can move tables by double clicking and popping your camera on to talk. Thanks for coming on today. We haven't got a date for the next one, but likely to be in a few months' time and likely to be virtual again, but you never know. We might be back in Manchester at some point soon.
Fingers crossed.
Tomorrow, so hopefully soon.
You never know.
Thanks for thanks for taking part in the quiz. Thanks to Lorna, thanks to Ella for they do all the organisation. I just do the fun bit. So.
It's definitely Ella. I just turn up.
It's all good. It's a team effort. I have your support.
And thanks to our fantastic speakers. Really, really great, interesting, useful content there. So
yeah,
absolutely.
brilliant.
Thanks
Thank you.
everyone, and enjoy some conversations. See you all soon.
See you later.
see ya.